Hello and welcome to the RBC Lunch and Learn series presented by the J Herbert Smith Centre. I'm your host, Jade, and I'm so excited for all of you to be joining us today. Today's guest is Greg Hemmings, CEO of Hemmings House. Greg is a veteran storyteller that aims to make change through the media that he and his team creates. Hemmings House goal is to not only create media that is impactful, but to live an impactful life as well. This is shown through their commitment to being a B-Corp that places people, planet, and profit as the triple bottom line. Greg is a seasoned entrepreneur in the region and has lent his skill to furthering many impactful projects inside and out of New Brunswick. And we're very excited for him to be joining us today. On top of that, here's a little bit more about Greg. Greg Hemmings is the founder and CEO. He is a filmmaker and storyteller with a global vision and experience to match. Greg's portfolio features award-winning documentaries, docu-soaps, music videos, live concert films, TV commercials, and commercial videos. He has won numerous awards, including the prestigious Commonwealth Vision Award presented by the Royal Commonwealth Society in England. And I'm going to get Greg here to the stream with us today. So hello, Greg. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Jade. How are I've got my nice, it's snowing outside too. And, it's good to see you, Jade.
Man.
Connected a number of times, and this is the first time with more of a digital face-to-face. So this is really
Absolutely.
Cool.
No, and yeah, we've spoken a few times on different calls, and I'm just glad that you could be joining us today. You have a wealth of experience in the region as an entrepreneur, but also helping others in the region tell some of their stories. And I thought it would be a really great opportunity to get you in and chat about some of that stuff, but also talk about Hemmings House and B-Corps and the idea of an impactful company as well, too.
Yeah, well, 100%. It's my passion. It's funny because, I am passionate about making films and videos and documentaries and stories, but you don't hear me speaking about that as often as you hear me speaking about my passions in building a business that actually creates impact. And it's funny, one's not weighted more passionate than the other, but the message that I like to share with people is the one that we're talking about just right here today, Jade, is how do we look at our businesses as a work of art, if you will, and grow it to make an impact in the world that's constructive, not destructive. And that's my path right now.
Absolutely. So why don't we start at the top a little bit here, and let's start with the sort of the 5 questions. So we kind of already learned who you are. Why don't you tell us a bit more about what you do as an entrepreneur, as a company, and that sort of thing as well?
Yeah, well, as an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur since as long as I can remember. I think my first business, I was 6 or 7 years old, and I was selling kindling to neighbors, and that evolved to being the neighborhood lawn mowing kid. I had my first little business called Yardscape, and you know what? I did pretty well mowing lawns, and it kept me outside, kept me out of trouble, and it kept me making money to the point where I didn't borrow any money to put myself through 4 years of post-secondary education. It was all lawn mowing money. So I've been an entrepreneur since the very beginning. So I've been an entrepreneur longer than I've been a filmmaker or a storyteller or a media maker. And so for me, it's been a really cool journey building a business as an artist first. So when you come to something as process driven as a business, but if you come to it with the lens of an artist, it becomes really fun. It becomes a creative endeavor in itself. And so for me, over the many years of building this company, Hemmings House, as a local film and commercial video production company, it's been really cool to see how I can use it and mold it and put it in different directions. Just to see certain types of impacts that connect with the community. And I don't know if my way is the right way of doing a business, but for me, it's certainly a spiritually fulfilling way where it's not just about making money. It's about how do we please, how do we delight people? Seth Godin always uses the language around delighting your stakeholders and your customers. And for me, I just want to build a company that the people that work here are proud of, that our customers are proud of, our community is proud of. And for me, continuously changes because as a creative person, nothing can be static. So that's what I do. I lead the ship. once a year, I'll sling a camera and direct a film. That's mostly a passion project, but my incredible team here at Hemmings House, they work around the clock, producing tons and tons of content at a very high level. And they give me the space to breathe and be creative and think about these things, like how do we hack capitalism in a way that is that's generative and not detractive. That's a long answer, isn't it, Jade?
It is. No, sorry, I'm just writing down really quickly.
Did you write all that down?
No. I wrote some notes down though, and the one I want to focus on is how do we hack capitalism? That's an interesting line, and it's one that I think is really important right now, especially with the venture capital system right now, especially in New Brunswick's a little bit on the slower side. So how can we hack the capitalism society that we live in and make some of those impacts?
I don't have a direct answer. However, I can share some observations. Over the last number of years, I've been deeply involved with two really cool communities. One is the global B-Corp community, which we can go into later if you like. And the other one is called the Social Venture Circle, which is two different community organizations that have just recently merged together. One was called the Social Venture Network, which was a mostly American-based, but a global network of entrepreneurs committed to building a just and shared prosperity for all in capitalism, if you will, with business. And the other was called Investor Circle. And Investor Circle was a meeting place for impact investors who really wanted to put their capital into places that make true change and certainly make a return on the dollar as well. But that was secondary to using their wealth to make positive change. Those two organizations came together recently, and I've learned a lot. I've been very inspired by a lot of these seasoned entrepreneurs and investors. So I do have a little bit of a advantage in this, not advantage, but what's the word? I've got a lot of context, even though I'm not a big investor myself. I've been able to see within this bubble how much capitalism hacking is actually happening right now. And we're not hearing about it necessarily in Bloomberg or, we're not seeing it celebrated as much in mainstream media, but it's starting to happen. I really think COVID has really put a fire under that movement, and we're going to see a lot more of that coming down the road. So to answer your question, how do I hack capitalism? Well, one is I do things like this. I speak on a lot of stages, and I've got a podcast, the Boiling Point podcast. Mm-hmm. I get out there a lot, and it's funny because I'm also a content marketer. What I do for my clients is I help them market their message through film content. One would think that I would try to sell more videos when I have a chance to get up on stage and talk about my business and that, but that's not what I do. I use these privileged opportunities to share these stories like this about how to lead a company with love, if you will, and how to build an economy that's not fear-based and not greed-based, but more abundance-based. So I'm using this very basic language around how I approach business in hoping that'll inspire others, because at the end of the day, we have built a good, sustainable, profitable company. We've been going since 2006, and we've got a significant team that is doing amazing things, and we've led with love at every juncture that we can. Of course, everybody slips from time to time, but because we use it as a metric, like, are we making loving decisions as we grow this business? It helps us show up in capitalism slightly differently in how we make our decisions. Hopefully, as I speak on stages like this, hopefully that concept can be infectious, and other entrepreneurs and change makers will be able to follow suit. So as an entrepreneur, if you're building a company not only to make money, but to make true social environmental impact, that's one way to hack capitalism. Because if enough of us are doing it, we will make seismic changes. The other side is to encourage the consumer to continue having a loud voice and to continue to support regenerative companies that are, for example, let's use clothing and fashion, for example. You've got a choice to put your dollars into fast fashion, where a lot of the materials might end up in the landfill, or you might want to instead spend a little bit more at Patagonia, let's say, who's really focused on the circular economy, really bringing back some of those old garments and turning them into new items to avoid landfills and destruction to the environment. So, but we're at this time right now. We're living this very exciting time where this is not fringe anymore. People are now waking up. I just think about Texas, like Houston. Last time I was in Houston, it was 45 degrees Celsius, and it was -8 last week with snow. And, it's right in the center it's like the energy center of the US for oil. And, I think there's a lot of, I can't imagine how many climate change deniers there are in the world right now, but there's certainly a lot of resistance to the Green New Deal, for example, or greenifying our economy in certain places like this. But when they feel these shifts happening in the world, how can you not want to jump to action? So that's happening right now. We're seeing things happen that are very tangible, like the California wildfires, the Amazon being cut down at incredible rates, which is so disturbing. And with this slight shift in American politics, I think we're in a place now where we're going to see a lot of capitalism hacking. Think about what just happened as well with GameStop, and think about what's happening with cryptocurrencies right now too. Like, today there's a little bit of a dip in Bitcoin, but the cryptocurrencies in the last 12 months have skyrocketed. But why? They're skyrocketing because the old system is failing people in trust. Like, does the majority of our population trust the status quo systems? Well, if they did, there wouldn't be a need for a change. There wouldn't be a need to invest in an alternative currency that might be there to protect them as a safety net in the future. But it's really cool just to see these things that are happening, these revolutions that are happening right now, that I would include as certain hacks in capitalism. Capitalism is not a bad thing by design. It's quite neutral. It's an amazing tool, but it's how you approach it. Do you approach it with greed and fear, or do you approach it with love and abundance? And that's the message that I'm here to share, Jade.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually a really
pulpit.
Well, I don't know. It's a really good segue though, that to talk about B Corps, I think, because that's kind of the messaging about B corporations, and some people out there might not know what a B Corp is. So let's talk a little bit about what a B corporation is and the triple bottom line and what that really means for an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's great. There's really no better organization when we're talking about the triple bottom line than B Corp. So these two go very much hand in hand. So traditionally, the success of business has been measured on the singular bottom line of finance, which makes sense. You either make money or you lose money, and that's the bottom line. And if you constantly lose money, you're not going to be in business for very long. So the bottom line, the economic bottom line of your business is critical. But there's also a few other things that are critical as well, which is people and planet. So triple bottom line stands for people, planet, and profit. So one not being more important than the other. If you're making profit by destroying the planet, not good. If you're making profit on the backs of exploiting people, not good. But if you're making profit by doing good for humanity and being regenerative for the environment, then that's a big check, 3 really good check marks. So at the end of the year, when we audit our financials, we also audit what was our carbon footprint this year. How much air travel did we do? How much rent-a-cars did we take across the country for our productions? How much server energy do we use for to put up all our videos up online? All of these things are captured. And for us as a storytelling company, we want to really honor the environment by telling really good stories that inspire people about our natural surroundings and why it's important to protect our environment. And same goes with our social impact. We really want to tell stories that that inspire more caring and kindness to our neighbors out there in the world, to be a more empathetic humanity. I use my business to do that. I use my business to sell to companies that believe the same thing. I use my business to make films that help people be more aware. So for me, those are three really important things. How do I make money by honoring the planet and serving people? Now, you could say you do that, and a lot of companies actually do that who aren't B Corps. However, if you're a B Corp, you get certified, which means you actually are what you say you are, because you get audited just as stringently as if your accountant was going through your year ends for financial audits. And it's a really cool thing. It's a very similar certification to LEED architecture or fair trade, organic. These are certification logos that you see on the side of your products. So there's a lot of B Corps out there in the world. A lot of B Corps, Ben and Jerry's ice cream, B Corp, Patagonia, B Corp, Etsy is a B Corp, and our Entrepreneurs Bank, BDC, is a B Corp, which is really cool in Canada. And we've got a number of B Corps here in Atlantic Canada as well, which is really, really exciting. So not only is it a certification, Jade, it is a community. So I've got friends in Taiwan, I've got friends in Colombia, I've got friends all through Europe, all through the States, just because we're all B Corps. And before COVID, every year we'd meet together and share business ideas and find other really cool ways to hack capitalism for the better. And a lot of really fun moments in being involved with a community that is kind of bored with the status quo. Yeah, that's what B Corp is. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that was a really great overview for some people out there who might not have known what B Corp is, and gave us a very good amount of insight into this community that exists outside of, just New Brunswick, because there might be people out here who are watching who think that it is a lonely sort of path as an entrepreneur here, especially in New Brunswick, and never know if there are other people looking to make impacts as well, right? So
again, I suggest if anybody's curious, bcorporation.net is the website. And you can also do a Google search for the B Impact Assessment. And that's the assessment tool. You can go through it in 90 minutes and you can see what score you get. And you need at least 80 points out of 200 to become a B Corp. And the average good company in Canada, last time I checked, this might be old data, but was 23 points. So think about that. A good company that's not innately doing harm, a company we would all agree that is doing good for the community in Canada would average 23 points out of 200. To become a B Corp, you have to have 80 points. So there's a lot of documentation and things you have to prove that you are to get up to 80, but it just helps you make a good business. If you're starting a new business, one of my biggest tips would be to go through the B Impact Assessment tool. Even if you don't want to be a B Corp, that's fine. And it'll show you every single bit of documentation you need to build a watertight company. For anybody who is going through business school right now, I really feel like this should be, mandatory reading in universities, is go through the assessment, figure it out. Because if you want to be tight with everything from JEDI, which would be, justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, to environmental standards, to, the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, governance, all these things, they're all packaged up in this assessment. And if you don't know how to do it, they help you go through it. Like when we went through it a number of years ago, they said, do you have a maternity, paternity leave policy at Hemmings House? I was like, oh yeah, sure. None of us had kids at the time. I was like, yeah, of course. And then they were like, well, show us. I was like, oh, no, I don't have one written down. Okay, well, let's write it down. So they'll help you. So write a policy, put it in the handbook, and then you'll get X amount of points. So it's gamifying making positive businesses work. So how do you say no to that?
It's hard to, right? Awesome. I just want to take it back for a quick second. And you mentioned something about getting out there a lot and telling your story. And I think that's really important right now, with, we're all stuck at home. There's so much information coming at us at any given moment right now. How would you recommend new entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs looking to grow their following tell their stories right now?
Yeah. It's very interesting and important question. It's so funny. As I'm talking, Siri just popped up and started writing down the words I was saying. I must have said the word seriously. Anyway, it's critical because we do business with people that we know and trust. Now, that doesn't mean physically know necessarily, but how do I get to know Jade if Jade didn't reach out to me a couple of years ago to get to know me? Like you and I have a connection. So now I'm paying attention to Jade. It's as simple as that. So how do we get heard in a noisy market? Well, start talking, start sharing. And as I said earlier, it's not about you. I mean, like it's not about me, the storyteller. It's about the audience. So what value can I share out of my own experience with the people who I'm speaking to? And the more value that you share, a natural outcome of that is people start to listen and they follow. And there's certainly a marketing opportunity there. However, you're not doing this for a marketing reason. You're doing this because this is the way we do business. We do business because we're building community, and in community, you share knowledge and information, and you celebrate even things like your competition, as hard as that might be. If we are to build, like for me, I'm really focused on building a happier and kinder world. If I'm to do that, I have to show up in the business field, practicing what I preach, and that's about sharing what I have and not keeping things for myself, if that makes sense. So, whatever field that you're in, like Jade, you're really interested, like your world in the gaming sector is really interesting, and this very specific niche that you're in. Like, I'm just starting to follow or start to listen to certain rooms on Clubhouse, which is yet another social media feed that I'm now going to have to figure out. But anyway, it's really cool. Like, go have conversations. Like, go set up a room on Clubhouse and just start speaking your stories that have value to other people who are interested in the gaming industry, right? It's as simple as that. And a lot of people get a little freaked out about getting on stage. And when I say getting on stage, that could be this type of stage. A physical stage, it could be writing a blog, is getting on a stage, mm-hmm. But like sharing their wisdom and their content and their stories. But it just takes practice, like anything. And if anybody's fearful of public speaking, I really enjoyed for a few years going to Toastmasters, and it's pretty much free. Like it's a really small membership dues, like maybe $100 a year or less or something. But you get to practice speaking. Now, I'm not, when I public speak, I don't memorize speeches. I feel it's a weakness of mine. Like, it's an area I could really improve on, but I'm really passionate about what I talk about. So I don't even really need to prepare that much. I just come and know my basic bullet points, but that comes with practice. And whether it's public speaking practice through a Toastmasters group, or getting together for a writing group or just start publishing on LinkedIn or on medium.com, and just getting some feedback from people, that's important. And if you're trying to sell video like I am, why not talk about, instead of saying, hey, this is why you should hire Hemmings House to get your video, instead of doing that, why not say, hey, have you ever thought about shooting your own video with your iPhone before coming to a company to spend a lot of money? Why don't you try to figure out how to do it on your own first? And I'm going to give you the tools. Here's the entry-level editing software that anybody can use. You can use your BlackBerry. You can use your Samsung, your iPhone, or whatever you've got. And the value of giving away that knowledge and that skill is tremendous, because mm-hmm. you become the one that shared. And eventually that will come back to you, because when that person tries it and does it and is successful with it, eventually they'll get a budget and they want to do something with more polish, and there's a good chance they'll come back to you. But I don't do any of this stuff for a return to Hemmings House, although that has naturally been how it works. If I get out there and just share as a mentor, as a supporter, as a, coming on programs like this, a natural outcome is opportunities come my way. And that's not reserved for me. This is just how it works. So as long as you find some courage to share your values and share your stories and share your skill and your wisdom, it's as easy as that. And you don't have to overthink it. Just say yes to opportunities when people ask you to share.
No, awesome. That sounds amazing. And I'm going to circle back to something, but I'm just sort of thinking it from personal experience right now. I've taken this year to try some of those exact things that you're talking about, starting podcasts and doing blogging and those sort of things, just on a personal level. And it is a learning experience to take the feedback that you get from people. You put yourself out there and with a piece of content that you don't know if you did well or not, but until it hits that audience, until it hits someone, just as the entrepreneurial sort of mindset that we teach about, iteration and that sort of stuff, you need to iterate even on creating your own content and your own media and brand. So, with that in mind, though, how do you handle, I guess, criticism, but also, constructive criticism, more as I would like to say?
I'm laughing because you and I spoke about Code Kids right before we started here, which is a film that we shot a number of years ago. And I'm very proud of that film because of the outcome. One of the outcomes of that film was the creation of Brilliant Labs, which we found the model while we were filming Code Kids in Estonia. David Alston was really inspired about that model, brought it back and really shook the tree. And if we hadn't done that film, there's a good chance we wouldn't have learned that model in Estonia, and there's a good chance it wouldn't have inspired people here in New Brunswick to start Brilliant Labs. So I'm very proud of the outcome. As a film, it's an okay film. It's fine. But I'm laughing because recently, I'll have to look it up again, but recently I made the hilarious mistake of reading the comments because it's on YouTube right now. It's on the Hemmings House YouTube. And interestingly, it's got a lot of views. I think there's like 250,000 views on it or something. And some people are saying things like, well, this taught me absolutely nothing, or I can't remember some of the comments, but they were like, I was actually laughing out loud because some of them were really funny. And in fact, if you got it in front of you, read a couple, Jade. Do you have it in front of you there by chance?
Oh, I can pull it up. Give me like 2 seconds here, but yeah.
Yeah. So as you're pulling it up, when I see stuff like that, I don't take it as precious. I know the value of my output is, and there's a time for everything too. Like another film that we did, Millennial Dream.
Yes, I watched.
There was a time for that. There was a 12-month period where that film was relevant. If you watched it today, you'd roll your eyes, and I get it. I roll my eyes when I see it now, but there was a time and a purpose for it. So you just have to realize that your value that you choose in your work is your value, and you got to stay strong to that value. And when other people criticize it, at least they watched it. At least they're talking about it, Yeah. So you do need a little bit of thick skin, I guess, but it never really does bother me because I didn't ever say my work was going to be perfect or that it was going to resonate with everybody, But did this piece of work fulfill my objective? Yes or no? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm now reading some of the comments here. It has
read a couple of randoms, specifically critical ones. I'd like to hear some critical ones.
It has nothing to do with teachers, universities, etc. Programming is like becoming a millionaire. Everyone could do it, but most people are lazy idiots who spend their whole day reading Facebook, which is kind of ironic. Me reading this comment anyway.
That's interesting because that was an interesting piece of feedback, not necessarily on the film, but just on the discussion. So that's actually a really nice piece of commentary.
Here's another one. Hilarious how in one part of the documentary, Estonia was being bigged up. Then towards the end, the guy from that region claimed people know if they learn coding, they can escape from these countries. LOL, something like that. I cannot remember what was said verbatim. So just again.
But you know what? People watched it. So I think it's good. And there's a few other ones in there that are just really funny. And I suppose if I didn't have thick skin, maybe hurt my feelings, but not really.
Here's a really fun one. The kid at 840 just used Windows feature hacked in their computers. Typical documentary talk.
Perfect. Nailed it. So I get stuff like that. And, but you know what? The good news of that is, though I don't take it emotionally or personally, I look at that as a wonderful learning opportunity to say, okay, what is this person actually seeing? And how should I address that next time I make a film or a blog or a podcast or whatever it is? Mm-hmm. And that's how we learn, recently maybe 2 years ago, we started to offset all of our carbon emissions at Hemmings House through Community Forest International. So they save the Acadian forest from being clear cut. And by saving them, they continue to suck the carbon out of the air, and we get to offset the carbon that we've produced. And I used to say things like, yeah, we're carbon neutral, until someone pointed out, no, you're not. You're scope 1 carbon neutral, but not scope 2, scope 3. And I was like, ooh, I better figure out what that means. So how quickly I've learned, and now I'm very careful with my language. So that's how we learn. We can't be afraid to get that feedback, because how many people actually have time to figure all of the details out of anything? If you're an entrepreneur, if you're creative, if you're an artist, you just got to put it out there. And if you're not open to getting criticism, whether it's brutal criticism or constructive, then we aren't going to be able to iterate and create even more powerfully the next time. So I think that's important. It's okay to get criticized. And guess what? There are trolls everywhere. So be prepared and make it part of your comedic portion of your day, and just have a little smile when you read them.
Awesome. Yeah, don't internalize it. But I was watching a video the other day about making YouTube videos and content creation, and one of the lines and a piece of wisdom that I really enjoyed from it is, done is better than perfect. Right? So
and Seth Godin talks about that all the time. His book called Ship It is all about that. And it's all about if you're waiting for perfection, you're being selfish. You will never get it done, because perfection does not exist. So if you're withholding the release of your art, you're actually literally withholding it from somebody that needs that art. So get it out there, ship it. It's minimal viable. It might be a little bit more than your MVP, but get it out there and let the community help you iterate it and figure out how to do it better next time. And Seth is all over that. And I love his philosophy around that.
Yeah. It was really interesting talking about Millennial Dream earlier, as you said. If anyone wants to look that up, it's a great film that Greg and his team, like you said, it's a little bit dated. I kind of find it interesting. One of the major components there was talking about the shift from suburban to urban. But what I personally think is happening now is a reversal of that, especially like looking at the COVID times right now, where, the price of a house in New Brunswick is higher than we've ever seen it before, because we're getting people shifting back to the more suburban areas. And it is the millennial people like myself and yourself, and regardless of that, it was interesting to hear Seth's sort of perspective on the millennial dream at that time, and even comparing it to now. So what do you think about that? Just sort of looking back at that now, just for a quick moment. The millennial dream you released that about 5 years ago, I think it was 2016,
maybe even 6 years ago. And we may have even started filming it 7 years ago. So it was when the millennial generation was just either in university or getting out of university, right? Like the older millennials, if you will. So it was just before the millennials became the largest demographic in the workforce. So it was also around the time where some of the old guard had no idea how to understand millennials, but that's done now, right? So all of this information and having, it backed by someone like Seth Godin as a thought leader was really important for the time. When I watch it back now, I do cringe, but I have to remember it's contextual, and I think things have changed. I think COVID has really looked at, has really positioned places like New Brunswick as really attractive to people who followed the millennial dream to Toronto, to the inner city cores, and now can't afford to be there necessarily anymore. And a lot of people are finding it cool just to get back home, wherever home might be, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, whatever, we're seeing a lot of that. And so most of the messages in that film are not really as relevant anymore because everything has changed. So, but that's the exciting piece about being a documentary filmmaker too. You're capturing history, capturing a slice of time, and we will look back and we will laugh and roll our eyes and realize that at the time this was special, and it had impact. But I do encourage anybody who wants to watch any of those films. They're on our Hemmings House YouTube. So just go to YouTube and look up Hemmings House. Please do subscribe. I'm trying to put all of our old films on there. You're not going to see much of our commercial work there. It's mostly our documentaries, our TV series, stuff that's all dated, but we've got the rights to it back from CBC or all the different broadcasters that we've worked with. So do browse through and you can see some of those films.
And again, there's some amazing stuff in there. Again, Code Kids, although it was old, I know a conversation that I was having with David Alston before kind of led me back to have a conversation with you about that sort of stuff, because one particular moment you guys went to Finland and you were exploring how Finland became such a hub for coding and like Nokia's there and Angry Birds, the Rovio, that
Skype.
sort of thing.
Oh no, Skype was Estonia. Sorry. Yeah.
But to see that a region like Finland or Estonia, which has a very similar demographic and economic similarities to a place like New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada, and seeing how we could make similar impacts like that here, even though again it is dated, but to see the vision and where it could be and where it could go, and kind of comparing it to 10 years down the line of where we are now or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, those are a couple of good points. One is, it is cool because we did our first impact documentary 12 years ago. It was called Systema Revolution, and it's on our YouTube as well. And it's been really cool to see where Systema New Brunswick as a music social impact program in New Brunswick, where it's gone in the last decade plus. And we captured the very beginning of it. So what a cool thing to capture a piece of New Brunswick history when it was born and see where it has gone in 12 years, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with Code Kids. Code Kids was, let's say it's coming up to 10 years ago. It's probably less. It's probably a lot. I can't remember how long ago it was, but what's the impact been in 10 years? We went there looking for solutions for New Brunswick, actually for Atlantic Canada. And you're right, Estonia has a very similar population as Atlantic Canada. It's a resource-based industry. They've had economic hardships over the decades, very similar to us. And they figured out how to become leaders, global leaders. And what have we done since then in the last 10 years? Well, look at what Brilliant Labs has done in the last 10 years, or however long it was since we did this. So we're like, okay, well, this is neat. We actually are making our own really interesting progress in our little areas, and the other thing I want to say is how cool it is that we found in a lot of these films, like for Systema, we filmed in Caracas, Venezuela, because they were the best in the world at helping low-income children learn how to be global citizens through music, through classical music instruction daily for free. They're the best in the world at it. We brought that model back home through film, and then proved that we could build it out here, right? So we went to the global local and brought it to our local, right? Did the same thing in Estonia. Went to the global local, took a story there, brought it home. And we've done that a number of different times over the years. But the thing that gets me excited is, how do we bring our New Brunswick local, our Atlantic Canadian local, and export it to the world? And we've done that a number of times. I think New Brunswickers don't realize how many firsts are here and how many globally influential initiatives have been birthed here or modeled from here. And as a storyteller, it's my job to promote those initiatives and let the people in Estonia look at New Brunswick and say, oh, geez, I really like what they're doing with the carbon offsetting opportunity to say, to keep some of their forest stands up, like that's a very real thing. But until we tell that story of Community Forest International out of Sackville, for example, the rest of the world won't know it. So my job as a New Brunswicker, as an Atlantic Canadian, is to help promote those stories through documentaries, short films, podcasts, all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's another long-winded answer for you, Jade.
No, that's great. That actually leads to one of my questions that I was thinking of. And just so people out there know, if you have any questions for Greg, please post them in the comments as well. This is not an exclusive me and Greg conversation. If you have any questions for Greg, please feel free to ask them as well. As I'm thinking about it, though, you're talking about being a New Brunswicker, being an Atlantic Canadian, and sharing the brand of Atlantic Canada, and realizing that things do happen here. I know in my own personal ventures and exploring businesses, a lot of people think we can't do it here, or we don't do certain things here. What are your thoughts on that perception, and how do you think we can change some of those things?
Well, it's very true. There's a whole bunch of areas of opportunity here. Opportunity like, Atlantic Canada doesn't do X, Y, or Z. Well, of course, we get that. And we've heard that story over and over and over and over again. But what about all the things that we are doing right? And how far do we share those stories? And that's why I love what Huddle has done. And Huddle is, their purpose is to share positive business stories. And I think our mindset about what Atlantic Canada has to offer has changed since stories are coming out of organizations like Huddle or Entrevestor and a few of these others, Atlantic Business Magazine. Like, we need to pay attention to the stories that are working. And we might be surprised to realize that, the things that we thought didn't exist here actually do exist here. We just didn't know it. And we're a hyper-connected community, but at the same time, we're hyper-disconnected because a lot of times, industries don't talk with each other. A lot of times communities don't talk with each other. A lot of times we're not sharing the right stories. And for areas where we're totally negligent in, what a great opportunity for somebody to really jump in. I was talking to someone yesterday about what would it look like to have Atlantic Canada, or New Brunswick specifically, a national leader in environmental sustainability and governance. So like New Brunswick being a center point for B-Corps and social ventures, and a leader in really tight governance. And there's nothing stopping a bunch of businesses and the universities and the chambers to jump on board and say, yeah, we want to claim New Brunswick as this thing, whatever that thing might be.
Mm-hmm.
But you need energy, you need leadership, and to create a movement, you need a bunch of passionate people to really start rowing in the same direction. And that's sometimes it is difficult. But what I realize about Atlantic Canadians is everybody wants to help. So if there's a hole, find the other people that want to help fix it. Help fill it. And it's okay if I get accused of being hyper optimistic. That does happen from time to time, but it's a good headspace to be in, because I can continue to be creative and think about solutions instead of realizing how crappy everything is all the time and how impossible everything's going to be. So again, it's a mindset as well. But I really believe we've got a lot going on in New Brunswick and Atlantic Canada that just isn't being shared, and it's everybody's responsibility to listen a little bit deeper and to share those stories.
No, absolutely. And pardon my dog barking in the background there.
I love it.
Yeah, so energy, leadership, and passion, and community. And one thing, and I honestly believe this, is that New Brunswickers and Atlantic Canadians in general have a strength in building community that you don't see anywhere else in Canada. People say they know when you're from Atlantic Canada because you're more polite for some reason, or you're just a little more friendly, and it's interesting. However, I am kind of curious about this right now, just from a COVID perspective. How would you go about building a community right now when we can't, have meetups or, that sort of thing, and can't really, it's harder to see people face to face, especially in a situation like this. And Zoom calls get really noisy when there are 20 people all trying to talk at the same time. So what would your advice be for building up a community during these difficult times that we're facing?
Well, I think it's the best time in the world to do it, and best time in history, because there's no FOMO happening right now about missing out on the next conference in person. Like, it's just not happening because they don't exist right now. So you're going to have to learn to organize yourselves better online, but it's not necessarily about getting 100 people on a Zoom to figure stuff out. It's about you and I talking about something, and then you and I inviting another person in. And then once the groundwork is set down for a movement, you open it up to your networks, say, hey, who else has expertise in this? And you start to build a little micro movement. Again, this whole trendy conversation around Clubhouse right now is interesting because it's not Zoom, and it's not having to look a certain way and try to be, whatever. And we're all exhausted of that anyway. But it'd be so easy for someone to make a Clubhouse room where every day at 11 a.m. we're talking about how to innovate in New Brunswick. That could be the conversation, and you just know every day you can pop into that room and share. So these technologies are there, and I think it's fun to note that this brand new one that's blowing up is it's really low barrier entry. You don't need a video camera for it. You don't even have to pay to turn your microphone on. You just put your hand up and say, I've got something to say, so there could be, I think now's a great time to take advantage of digital communities to create movements, so when I'm talking about, building community around an idea, we're really talking about building a movement around an idea, and that doesn't have to be in person.
Muted, sorry. Yeah, no, absolutely. Because sorry, I'm writing down notes here as I'm trying to talk at the same time, and sometimes my words and my writing get mixed up. No, and that's absolutely important. And Clubhouse is one that only recently popped up on my own radar as well. I don't have an Apple device though, which is kind of my own issue.
Is it Apple?
It's Apple. It's Apple only right now.
Really?
As well as invite only, I believe.
Yeah.
But I was talking in one community that I helped start called Global Startup Community, which is a Discord server of all of these entrepreneurs around the world who are looking to do exactly as you're saying. And to hear them start talking about another platform, but it makes it even easier for people to connect and talk and have these conversations about entrepreneurship or making change. It's great to see and great to hear that there's another opportunity for people.
It's frustrating at the same time. It's like another place. But the reason I like this is audio only, and I'm a podcaster, as are you. So it's really cool, and nothing's archived. So like the conversations are live, like talk radio, and nobody can go back and share them later and comment on them. It's pretty much troll free. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. It's the new version of talk radio, but it's democratized, if you will. It's a neat model.
No, I absolutely agree. And it makes a different type of content. You and I could go into conversations about content creation like nobody's business, so I won't go too far that direction, but it does make me think about, back to your message about creating your own content and talking about it. Some people don't know where to start for that sort of thing. And, I know you talked about sharing your value, but not everyone knows how to share that value properly or in a way that they feel comfortable with. So how would you recommend someone find their medium, their method to be a thought leader?
Well, first of all, it's good that they are a thought leader first. It's tough to pretend that you're a thought leader. So if you've got an area of expertise in any category, pick it and stick with it. For me, you're going to always hear me talking about B-Corps and social impact and business as a force for good, even though I could be talking about, this is why you need to hire Hemmings House to make a video. I could talk like that, but I find it more interesting to talk something more macro. which is how do we use our businesses as a force for good? And by the way, I've got a film company, so finding that place and, doing what you're doing, Jade, in this conversation, like you've chosen to use StreamYard as a platform to have a conversation. I just think it's important to try to put, dip your toe and start easy, start slow. It might be YouTube. You might feel really comfortable on YouTube, just taking your phone and trying to do a daily vlog where there's no editing. It's just like, hey, it's Monday, whatever. And today, I'm super passionate about Bitcoin, and today I took a 10% drop, and I'm not too worried because X, Y, Z. But like it might just be a little nugget of information that you release every day. And if you got 3 viewers, that's fine. And then 5 viewers, it's fine. 50, 500. I find with any of these things, like for Boiling Point, our podcast, we've been doing it for years, every single week, probably for 8 years or more. I don't know. And we've never really marketed it. Like we'll share it out on our LinkedIn, all this. And we don't have hundreds of thousands of subscribers or anything, but we've got really high quality listeners. Like the people who have subscribed to us, they're engaged. It's not huge, but we just do it every week. It's hard. It's hard to be ignored if you keep on releasing stuff every single week for 8 years, So whatever your thing is, whether it's podcasting or doing these video interviews, I find podcasting and interviews like this are great because you get to speak to people that maybe you wouldn't have a chance to otherwise. For me to get, for Dave and I to get Chris Hadfield, shortly after he returned back from the International Space Station, for us to chat with him on a regular basis, how would we ever do that? Well, he released a book, wants to promote the book. Let's get him on the Boiling Point. He didn't check out how many subscribers we have. He just said yes. He's like, yeah, I'll come talk on here. So for me, how cool is that? I get to meet someone like Chris Hadfield, right? And then other people think Chris Hadfield's cool, and they're like, oh, what's this Boiling Point thing? Okay, I'll listen to a few of the other episodes. Oh, these are good. I'll subscribe. So it's an organic approach to growing a community, but putting stuff out that you're interested in. And one last thing, you mentioned to share your value. And I like that, but I want to just make a distinction between sharing your value and sharing your values. But they're both very interconnected because your value, like the value to the world or the value that you give yourself, there's a good chance it's heavily rooted in your values, right? So sharing your values is important, and being very courageous about sharing your values is really important. The first time I got up on stage, I don't know, maybe there were 600 or 700 people in the room. I can't remember. I seem like I can't remember a lot of things, but I was doing a keynote at our local chamber dinner, and I got up and I kind of came out of hiding, and I admitted to the world that I actually care about more than making money. And it was all the business community. Everybody in suits, and I get up, and everybody wants to hear what I have to say about film storytelling and stuff. Instead, I talk to them about what my mission statement is, which is creating a happy and kind world fueled by passionate storytelling. And I broke it down how I got to that point, about how I care about peace in the world and how I want to contribute to kindness in our communities and all this. And to speak that language in front of a hardened business community was scary for me. And I know there was some cute eye rolls in the audience. And I say that in the fact that there's probably a lot of people saying, oh, that's really cute, Greg. I'm glad you believe that. That's nice. I'm sure there was a lot of that. But at the same time, I was like, hey, this is how I want to build a business. And I want to share that with everybody. So everybody knows where I stand, And after I shared that story a few times, it didn't become weird anymore. I was just like, yeah, I want to talk about incorporating love into the DNA of my company. How do we do that? And I just talk about it all the time. And it's not fluffy or weird or hippie. It just is. Because I would suspect even the most hardened capitalist, if you dug down to the core of what they're motivated for, they're motivated to create a high quality standard of living for their family, which is based out of love. You can always track it back to in many cases to a loving motive. But so many people, myself included, over the years, you get derailed by chasing scale and chasing big money and all that sort of thing, and you forget about what you're actually trying to do. And so there you go. So values sharing is very important when you're sharing your story out to the world.
Awesome, Greg. It looks like we're just about out of time here. I'll open it one last time. If there are any other questions from the audience, please feel free to put them in the comments there. Just in the meantime, though, as I'm talking with you, again, thank you so much, Greg, for coming and being a part of the show. Look, you and I have had some great conversations, and it was just great to have another one and talk a lot about some of your values, for example, that really inspire you to do some of your work, and how others can take their own values and create new businesses, and learn from experience, and learn from failures, and learn by just doing. So absolutely. So again, I just want to say thank you, and I'm going to wrap up real quick here with you, if that's all good with you. So thank you all for tuning in to the RBC Lunch and Learn series, hosted by the J Herbert Smith Centre. I hope today's show has been helpful for you on your entrepreneurial journey. If you have any questions about any of the programs that our center runs and some of the education that we run, or for Greg himself, please feel free to send us a message on Facebook, or email us at tme@unb.ca. Next week we are off due to the reading week at UNB, but we will return the following week, where we have Jolene Lasky, CEO of Wabanaki Maple. So thank you all again for joining us, and I hope you all have a great week.
Thanks, Jade.
Thanks, Greg.
See you some other time soon.